Happy Wednesday, everyone. This morning I want to tackle a pretty interesting theological question. Right now, if you are reading the Bible Reading Challenge, then you're getting pretty close to the end of the book of 1 Chronicles. And you might be wondering, why does the Bible have both 1st and 2nd Kings and 1st and 2nd Chronicles? At first glance, these books are very similar. Why are both of them needed? Well, what I want to point out is that while they may look very similar at first glance, there are actually tremendous differences between these two sets of books. For starters, 1st and 2nd Kings talk a whole lot about prophets. As a matter of fact, more than 1/3 of the chapters in those two books are actually about prophets, namely Elijah and Elisha. This has led many scholars to say that this book was actually written by a prophet. And the reason I say this book is because originally 1st and 2nd Kings was just the book of Kings, and 1st and 2nd Chronicles was just the book of Chronicles. But as scribes were making copies onto scrolls, the scrolls for these big books were so massive that it became expedient to actually split them into two different books so that the scrolls wouldn't be so big. And that's carried on through the thousands of years to where even still today we have 1st and 2nd Kings and 1st and 2nd Chronicles. But I also want you to notice as you read 1st and 2nd Kings and 1st and 2nd Chronicles that 1st and 2nd Kings deal with both the kings of the north and the south simultaneously, while the book of 1st and 2nd Chronicles only talks about the kings from the south. We'll talk more about that later. As far as dates go, the book of 1st and 2nd Kings was probably written about one generation sooner than 1st and 2nd Chronicles. The reason that we know this is that typically whenever you write a history book, you start at a specific point and you bring that history up to the present. Well, the book of 1st and 2nd Kings ends with an event that happened in the middle of the 70-year captivity in Babylon. So probably for them that was the present. The book of 1st and 2nd Chronicles goes all the way up to an edict by King Cyrus of Persia that took place at the end of the 70-year exile. So most likely, it was written about a generation later. And that also is a huge clue as to who wrote the book of 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Because if you read the last two verses of 2nd Chronicles 36, it talks about an edict from King Cyrus of Persia telling all the Jews that they could go back to Jerusalem and begin to rebuild the city. Well, then if you read the first 3 verses of Ezra, it's almost verbatim. Ezra gives that exact same edict from King Cyrus. So this has led most scholars to believe that Ezra wrote 1st and 2nd Chronicles. I'm actually fairly certain that he did. And one thing that you're going to notice when you read 1st and 2nd Chronicles is you're going to notice that there are literally thousands and thousands of names. As a matter of fact, the first 10 chapters of 1st Chronicles, all it is so-and-so begat so-and-so, and then so-and-so begat so-and-so, and on and on and on and on. It can seem extremely tedious to us, but it meant something huge for the exiles that Ezra was writing to. You see, millions of Americans today, they travel to Ellis Island and they look through the massive immigrant logs of different people that came into our country. What are they looking for? Are they looking for random names? No, they're looking for maybe they're going to stumble across the name of their great-grandpa or their great-great-grandma. How cool would it be to find one of their names? Well, you see, this is exactly why Ezra included so many names in the book of 1st Chronicles. Because for this group of exiles, you see, they'd been in captivity for 70 years. The land of Babylon was the only land that they knew. And so for them, even though the land of Canaan was the promised land, for them it was a foreign land. And so whenever Ezra included those thousands and thousands of names, for them, as they're reading through, eventually they're going to stumble across the name of their great-grandpa. And when they see that, it's going to show them that this is not just a land over there, but this is my land, this is my homeland. And I also want you to notice that in 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra deals with history a lot more hopeful, a lot more positive than the writer of 1st and 2nd Kings does. For instance, David was a great king, but there were several tragic moments in David's life. His son Absalom, his son Adonijah, most notably his affair with Bathsheba and then the murder of her husband Uriah. These were tragic events that are covered extensively in 1 Kings. But 1 Chronicles doesn't talk about them at all. And this isn't because Ezra was trying to duck history. No, it was simply because Ezra was trying to show the history of his people that was positive, to give them hope. Because for this huddled group of exiles, hope was exactly what they needed. But for me, the biggest emphasis in the book of 1st and 2nd Chronicles is that Ezra carefully documents a promise that God gave to King David. You see, God told King David that his dynasty would last forever. You see, there have been some long dynasties in our world's history. You think of some of the massive dynasties in Egypt or in China that have lasted, some of them for over 1,000 years. But God told David that his dynasty was going to last forever. And what Ezra does in 1st and 2nd Chronicles is Ezra shows that no matter how bleak things got in the southern kingdom of Judah, there was never the lack of an heir for the throne. So up till Ezra's lifetime, God had kept his faithful promise to David for about 500 years. And even hundreds of years after Ezra died, while the descendants of David were no longer kings, they were still there. Until over 400 years later, two betrothed people, both of them of the bloodline of David, were called to the city of David, Bethlehem, for a census. And while there, they gave birth to a baby boy. His name was Jesus. And Jesus, the son of David, will be king forever. So you can see how 1st and 2nd Chronicles and 1st and 2nd Kings are both major pieces of the puzzle that show how God has faithfully been redeeming people throughout all of history, culminating in the birth, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So I hope you can see that these 4 books in Scripture, all 4 of them are so unique and so crucial, the Bible would not be the same without them. So I hope this history lesson has been a blessing to you today. Well, I hope to see all of you tonight at prayer service. Actually, tonight we're going to be doing something different. We're going to be kicking off our new children's class, which is a DVD curriculum called What's in the Bible with Buck Denver. And tonight we're actually going to all watch it together as a whole church family. I can almost promise you that you're going to learn something new from watching these DVDs. Every time I watch one, I'm kind of humbled at how he's teaching little kids things that I never knew about the Bible. And if you're not able to make it tonight, then I hope you will be here Saturday morning. We're having our church yard sale to send kids to camp. It'll start at 8:30. We need lots and lots of volunteers. God bless you and your families.